To this day, I have no idea what I saw. People I tell seem to not believe me, but I swear to God it's true. A little background information before I get into it. I'm a 29-year-old construction worker. Been doing it since high school. Metal framing and sheetrock, mostly. I'm in pretty decent shape. No history of mental disorders in my family. Only problem I've developed over the years is a mild case of tinnitus from being stubborn and refusing to wear ear protection. It comes during times of silence, like when I'm trying to sleep. So I try to keep the TV or the fan on to cancel out the ringing. Work was getting very slow where I lived, so I decided to move to Virginia. I was staying with a friend of mine who got me a sweet gig with a local construction company on Norfolk Naval Base. Huge job. 5-story building. Complete build-out from the ground up. Good pay. Not exactly close to where we were staying, but the drive wasn't bad as long as I made it in before morning traffic. The only thing wrong with the job, the foreman was a complete asshat. Always talking down to us workers in that sort of passive-aggressive tone that made me want to punch his face in. But as long as we stayed busy, he didn't bother us for too long. It was a huge job, and he had a lot of other people to bug. About 4 months into the job, I injured my right hand. Sliced my middle finger open on a piece of metal. It didn't hurt at all, actually. The doctor stitching me up said it was because the cut was so deep, it severed the nerves in my finger. The next day, I had to file an injury report and everything. My boss said he was going to put me on light duty, and that I didn't have to do anything except sweep until my hand healed. I was all for it. Same pay for easy work. For the first week, everything was all right. But then it started getting boring. I mean, really boring. The days dragged on, and I wondered why they didn't just pay me to stay home. So, naturally, I started wandering around the job to kill time. Checking out all the hallways, and there were plenty of them. Really long and gloomy looking when they were just gray brick all around. Some at the very top didn't even have temporary lighting yet, and would have been pitch black if it weren't for the huge window cutouts on each end, letting in sunlight. I stayed away from those hallways. They kinda creeped me out. One day, I was feeling bored, so I decided to go walking around the 4th floor. Most of the work had been finished, and there weren't any other trades doing work there at the time, electricians and plumbing and so on. So I had it all to myself. It was around that time I noticed my tinnitus was acting up worse than usual. I figured someone must have had a generator running or something, so I started moving towards the other end of the hallway. About 3/4 of the way, my ears started painfully ringing. I tried sticking my fingers in my ears and humming, which usually does the trick, but the ringing was so intense this time. I started feeling sick, and I fell over on my hands and knees. I was smacking my ears trying to make the ringing stop. My eyes started watering at one point, because I was slapping my head so hard. I got up on my knees, still covering my ears, trying to get to my feet so I could make it to the stairwell. But the ringing was so intense. Every move I made sent my head spinning. Moving slowly helped, but not much though. As I turned around, I noticed someone standing at the other end of the hallway, near one of the window cutouts. The sun behind him was so bright, all I could see was a silhouette. I started yelling, "Help! Help me!" as loud as I could. But the guy didn't move. I thought maybe he had earplugs in and couldn't hear me, so I started moving towards him. Slowly, so my head wouldn't spin as much. As I got closer, I started noticing things I hadn't before. First, this guy was huge, like impossibly huge. His head was small in proportion to his body, and near the top of the window. His shoulders were really wide and high, almost like he was shrugging. His arms were long, hanging down past his waist, with really long fingers on each hand. I still couldn't make out any facial features because of the bright sun behind him. But as I started realizing that this person wasn't normal, I began to slowly back away. He just stood there motionless, looking right at me. I was almost to the stairs when this thing slowly cocked its head to the side, like a dog does when it's confused, and the ringing in my ears only increased. It was extremely painful. At the time, I thought my ears were bleeding. I was pressing my hands into my ears and yelling, but the ringing was so loud I couldn't even hear myself at all. I dropped back onto my hands and knees and started shaking. I looked up to see if this thing was coming after me, but I only caught a glimpse of it as it walked into a nearby room. The instant it disappeared from my sight around the corner, the ringing in my ears just stopped, like somebody hit the mute button. Needless to say, I scrambled to my feet and ran the hell out of there, not looking back once. I stayed away from the 4th floor for the next couple of months. I told a few people what I saw, but they only pretended to be interested. It was about 5 months after it happened when I decided to go back up there. I checked every room. If there were any signs of this thing, they were long gone. I went to the window where it was standing and took a measurement. The very top of the window where its head was measured 10 foot 9 inches. I still have tinnitus. There have been a few times when I'm laying in bed at night, and the ringing gets painful, and I freak out and check every room in my apartment. But it never gets as bad as it was that day. And I really hope it never does. Again.